All right, so we're at Hoffma, and unfortunately, right here, this is on our list for Wednesday when we go to Saugatuck. This is barberry. This is a common planted shrub in people's yards. You can get yellow varieties, red varieties. You can see it's got thorns, and you can see the flowers at the end. The flowers of this are not, they're not all that great, but the leaves, you can get really pretty yellows and really pretty red, so it's a really commonly planted, but it's invasive. It's also been shown to be a haven for ticks, so ticks overwinter very well in this plant, and it's got these thorns, so if you have it in your yard,
I can get up close, maybe a white sheet of paper behind to help. There's the nice thorn. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can see, and these they're a pain in the butt in your yard if you do have this in your yard and you weed whack it or whatever, and then you get then you step on those. It's horrible. So don't ever plant this. You shouldn't be planting invasives. We've got here the wild lily of the valley. There's a bunch of them coming up. We've seen this before, so let's review. It's hard for you to tell these, but this is actually the spice bush. Now the way you'd know it is if you take the leaf and crush it, it'll smell like citrus. There's, since we're just right here, little cherry coming up. You can see the stipules. You can see those huge, see on that petiole there, the two little dots right there. Those little dots, again, cherries oftentimes have these glands. It's serrate, and then the lenticels. Okay, there's some little equisetums coming up. These are cute little equisetums coming up. There's,
those have the really cool stems that you can pull apart.
And if we come over to this side, well, let's go in the sun. It'll be more fun. So if we just kind of walk this way, I think things will be a little bit further advanced. There's lots of raspberry-like. I don't think these are actually raspberries. I think they're dewberries.
Yeah, I think so too.
And you would know that because they'd have a dewberry, which is kind of like a raspberry, but it stays to the stem more, and they're much smaller. But they've got the trifoliate leaves, and they've got little thorns. So rubus, raspberry, blackberry, dewberry. You'd need the berry to tell which one it is. If we keep coming this way, there's lots of violets. We've seen violets lots of places now. Not sure what species this is. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just a common one from your yard, because this is right next to a trail. So when you come in, you're bringing seeds. Again, this is all the spice bush. I can tell because it's kind of got a distinct leaf, but the way you would really know it is to smell the leaves, and they'd smell citrusy. We've got some hemlock. So here's a little cone, and on the way to this trail, we actually go through a hemlock forest. Usually you'd think of hemlocks in the Pacific Northwest, but we have good hemlock forests along the lakeshore, and Saugatuck has nice hemlock forest. Hoffma has good hemlock forest, and so again, they're little flat needles, soft flat needles. Okay, so lots of hemlock all through here. There's some good sedges. We'll see them better in a minute, but you can see coming up in threes pretty well.
Yeah, sure can.
There's the fertile fronds for sensitive fern. There's no little sensitive ferns though. I saw some a minute ago. We'll see some. They're just coming up. Okay. If we come over a little further and look at these see how they're flat? So these would be iris. The other thing that we might think of when we see these leaves sticking up like this would be a cattail, but remember a cattail is going to be round, whereas these are flat. There's a bunch of iris here. I was hoping to see some flowers, but they're not quite there yet. If we keep coming, there's mayapple. So we got a good mayapple. There's a ton of it all through the forest. We're at the edge. You can really see them.
Some itty bitty ones right down there.
And then these are actually either a trillium or a jack in the pulpit. It's hard to tell when they're that little, but it's going to be one or the other. There's a mayapple with the flowers just starting.
There's a wild lily of the valley flower just starting there too. I don't know if it's showing up in the video.
Yeah, that's what I was. Behind it, there's really good musclewood here. You see the trunk there?
Oh yeah.
It's good.
It's got nice muscles.
It's a lot of musclewood right here.
I don't know if you want me to try to get this one in here.
I think there'll be some better
Okay.
ones. There's so if we keep coming a little bit, there's closer ones right here. This is actually carex. It doesn't have the flowers yet, so that's annoying, but I know it's a carex. This is actually Carex aquatilis, so
I need a white sheet of paper for some contrast if that's handy.
oh,
still.
let's do this one because it's got
Oh yeah. That white sheet of paper might give us a little contrast with the lighting here.
yeah. The top is going to be the male flowers, and then you can see lower here there's pistils. You can see kind of the white stuff coming out. That's the stamen. Sorry, not the stamen, but the style stigma sticking out. You can tell. Here's one that's actually in flower.
This one in the sun shows up really well too. Yeah, actually, I think maybe in the sun that works out okay with the contrast back there.
So you can see the male on top and then the female on
yeah,
bottom.
that shows up really nicely.
So, and you can see this is very much in threes. Carex aquatilis is the same species I work on in northern Alaska. So it's got a huge distribution. And there's a ton of it
There's
through
a
here.
lot of it here, yeah.
And it's really pretty. So lots and lots of good carex through here. If we keep coming, there's lots of carex. There's usually lots of ferns. There's witch hazel.
Yeah.
So they're just coming out. So it's really annoying that everything is so small still. But you can see that they're quasi-roundish leaves. Ooh, I could be wrong on that one. We'll see. If it's got the round leaves, it's witch hazel. There's dogwood here, and it's actually got a flower. They haven't started yet, but they're getting close. This is actually red osier dogwood, which has got the red stem. It's a commonly planted one because of the red stem. So, but it's a common good wetland plant. Up a little further. Okay, so here's a new plant for us. That other one wasn't a witch hazel. It's this. It's the ulmus, and I know it. Speckled alder. It's got these little cones, so it's in the birch family, and it's got these little cones. So the leaves are so small it's hard to tell, but it actually is doubly serrate. But it's got the little cones. Up over here, there's a nice. This is going to be a Rosa palustris. Rosa palustris. So, marsh rose. Again, this is the one that's interesting because it's got deciduous thorns. I really wouldn't expect you to know the difference between this one and any of the roses without more stuff, but we happen to be in the water, so it's going to be the marsh rose. There's cinnamon ferns coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Usually there's a bunch of them. Keep looking. I was hoping they'd be a little further open. Over, we keep it coming. There's. You can see all the cones on so the leaves aren't even out yet, but you can see the cones for the speckled alder. Speckled alder is going to be the most common shrub in wetlands north of here. South of here, you'd have dogwood, buttonbush, which I haven't shown you yet, and willows in a wetland. But north of here, it would be all speckled alder, and that's so if you go to the UP, it's all that, but you don't have to go that far. Right here, we've got a mix of both because we're kind of on the cusp. Okay. There's usually
So spring botanizing goes.
Yeah. So all through here, there should be a bigger sensitive fern, but because there's all the old inflorescences, they're just not up yet. Here is the royal fern. If you come back in a few weeks, it'll be huge, or even a week. They're bigger than we saw before, but when it opens, they'll be doubly oddly pinnate leaves. Again, it's the most common. Cinnamon fern and royal fern are the most common shrub or ferns in wetlands around here. All right, I'm gonna grab a leaf here. It's not. There's usually a ton of marsh marigolds. Right, there is one here. I don't know how good your boots are. I showed you this in the yard at Gun Lake last week. There's usually a ton of these, but I don't know why there's so few. I wonder if the frost. they're an early spring one, so I'm shocked. But you see, it's got the round leaves, and then it's a good ranunculaceae marsh marigold. Usually there's like hundreds of them. The last several years there's been.
Yeah, that's strange.
There's a nice carex right here. It's a different species. I don't know what species this one is, but you can see it's actually in flower. And again, you know it's carex because it's got male and female flowers that are separate. Over here we do have the sensitive fern coming up. It's tiny, it's pathetic, but it is the sensitive fern.
They're cute though.
It's cute. There's more iris mixed in with the carex. Kind of a mixture here. These are all these are a mixture of dogwoods, and then you can see the cones, the speckled alder. So it's just kind of a mixture of the two. There's probably some willows in there as well. If you come in a week or two, I mean these ferns are going to be gorgeous. So we're getting wetter here. So usually wetter is further behind, usually. Let's go look out. Okay, I mean this is everywhere, but there's a little bit of duckweed mixed in there. It's just the green stuff floating. If we come up here and look out, there's cute, the willows, you can see the catkins. It might be better from up here.
Look nice and fuzzy.
Yeah, there's, willows are hard to identify the species, but to know willow is really easy because of the catkins. And then the leaves are easy because they're long and skinny. It's round at the base. There's usually tons of that, so it's not a hard one to find. If we go up a little bit,
One's coming up right next door.
You can definitely see that this is wet. This during the summer will dry out, but it'll still be moist soil. But there's a creek in the middle here that is obviously wet year-round. But the hydrology's been changing. I'm not sure what's going on here. It's been wetter. Well, this last couple of years have been, or the last year's been pretty wet. But normally during the summer, this is pretty dry. So it's just kind of muddy. It's not really standing water. But you can tell by the water lilies that's changing. Where you've got water lilies, that would be water year-round. So this used to be a really good wet meadow. It's become more wet, so it's less meadow and more just wet, marsh-like. But this is a nice park to come look for birds, look for plants. We're actually going to go over to that boardwalk in just a second.